Let me take you back to something most of us have completely forgotten. Before there were pharmacies on every corner. Before there were white coats and prescription pads. Before penicillin was even a thought in Alexander Fleming's mind. People got infections. Bad ones. And somehow, a good number of them survived. Not because they were lucky. But because they knew something we stopped teaching. They knew which plants to reach for. And today I want to introduce you, or maybe reintroduce you, to one of the most quietly powerful of all of them. A plant so effective that researchers have spent decades studying it, confirming its power, writing about it in journals. And yet somehow it never made the jump from the research page to your medicine cabinet. That plant is oregano. But not the kind you are sprinkling on your pizza. The difference nobody tells you about. Here is where it gets interesting, and where most people get it completely wrong. The oregano sitting in your spice rack is a culinary herb. It adds flavor. It smells wonderful. But it is not what we are talking about today. What we are talking about is oil of oregano. Specifically the oil extracted from wild oregano, most powerfully from a variety called Origanum vulgar, grown in the mountainous Mediterranean regions where the soil is mineral-rich and the plant grows slowly and strong. The difference between dried kitchen oregano and cold-pressed wild oregano oil is like the difference between a decorative wooden sword and an actual blade. Same name. Completely different power. And the active compound inside that oil is something called Carvacrol. That name is worth remembering. Microscope what Carvacrol actually does inside your body. Carvacrol is the reason scientists started paying attention to this plant in the first place. When researchers began testing it against bacteria in laboratory settings, the results were striking enough to get published in journals including the Journal of Applied Microbiology and the Brazilian Journal of Microbiology. Here is what they found in simple terms. Carvacrol works by breaking down the outer membrane of bacterial cells. Think of a bacteria cell like a tiny fortress. It has walls built to protect everything inside it. What Carvacrol does is weaken and eventually break through those walls, causing the bacteria to essentially fall apart from the outside in. What makes this remarkable is that it has shown this ability against some of the most stubborn bacterial strains we know, including E. coli, Staphylococcus aureus, which is the bacteria behind many skin and wound infections, Salmonella, Listeria, and even some strains of Candida, which is a fungal infection millions of people deal with silently every year. But here is the part that should genuinely stop you in your tracks. Some of those same bacteria have developed resistance to common antibiotics. They have learned to survive pharmaceutical drugs. And yet in study after study, Carvacrol still gets through. That is not a small thing. That is a very, very big thing. So why is it never prescribed? This is the question that sits at the center of today's video. And I want to give you an honest answer, not a dramatic one. The reason oil of oregano is not prescribed is not one single conspiracy. It is actually a combination of several quiet, practical realities that stack up against natural remedies almost every time. The first reality is that you cannot patent a plant. Pharmaceutical companies fund the majority of drug research because at the end of that research there is a patentable product they can own and sell. Wild oregano grows in the mountains of Turkey, Greece, and the Mediterranean. Nobody owns it. Nobody can. And because nobody can patent it, there is no financial engine powerful enough to push it through the enormously expensive process of FDA clinical trials. It is not that the research does not exist. It is that without a patent, there is no profit motive large enough to carry it all the way to a prescription pad. The second reality is the way doctors are trained. Medical education is deep, rigorous, and demanding. But it is also heavily shaped by pharmaceutical curriculum. Most doctors graduate with very little training in botanical medicine, not because they are uncurious people, but because it was simply not part of what they were taught. You cannot prescribe what you were never shown. The third reality is dosage and standardization. One of the genuine challenges with plant medicine is consistency. The potency of oregano oil can vary depending on where the plant was grown, how it was harvested, and how the oil was extracted. Without standardization, it becomes harder to say with certainty that every bottle delivers the same result. And medicine, rightly, requires that certainty before making wide recommendations. None of these reasons mean the plant does not work. They mean the system was not built to accommodate it. Hey, real quick. If you are still here and this is opening your eyes the way I think it is, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who need to hear this. And if you have a friend or family member who is always reaching for antibiotics at the first sign of infection, share this video with them. You might be doing them a real favor. Also drop in the comments, did you already know about oregano oil, or is this the first time you are hearing this? I read every single comment and I love knowing where you are starting from. Okay. Back to it. Because we are not done yet. House with garden: how people have traditionally used it. Long before the studies, long before the journals, people were using oregano medicinally across the ancient world. Ancient Greeks used it for wound care and respiratory infections. Hippocrates, who is considered the father of modern medicine, reportedly used oregano as an antiseptic and for digestive and lung-related problems. In traditional Middle Eastern and North African households, wild oregano preparations were passed from mothers to daughters as a standard response to winter illness, skin problems, and digestive upset. Not as a curiosity. As a first-line response. What is interesting is that the people using it were not thinking about Carvacrol or cell membranes. They were thinking about what worked. And generation after generation, this plant kept working. Lotion bottle: how to actually use oregano oil safely. Now this part matters and I want you to pay attention here because oregano oil is powerful and that power needs to be respected. Oregano oil is not something you pour directly into your mouth and call it a day. It is highly concentrated and in its undiluted form it can irritate your mouth, throat, and stomach lining quite significantly. The standard approach for internal use is to dilute it in a carrier oil, typically olive oil or coconut oil, or to use a commercially prepared softgel capsule that has already been standardized to a specific Carvacrol percentage. Many practitioners who work with botanical medicine suggest looking for products standardized to at least 70% Carvacrol for meaningful antimicrobial effect. For external use on minor skin infections or wounds, it should always be diluted before applying to skin. Around 2 to 3 drops in a tablespoon of carrier oil is a commonly used ratio. A few important boundaries to hold. Oregano oil is not a replacement for emergency medical care. If you have a serious infection, a spreading wound, a high fever that is not breaking, or any sign that something is escalating beyond your ability to manage it at home, please seek professional medical attention. This is a tool in a broader toolkit. Not an everything answer. It is also worth knowing that oregano oil can interact with blood-thinning medications and should be used cautiously by pregnant women and those with plant allergies in the mint family. Start low. Go slow. Pay attention to how your body responds. Globe showing Europe, Africa, the bigger picture. We are living in a moment where antibiotic resistance is one of the most serious medical concerns on the planet. The World Health Organization has flagged it as a global emergency. Bacteria are adapting faster than new drugs are being developed. In that context, the idea that there are plant compounds that have been quietly fighting bacteria for centuries without triggering the same resistance patterns deserves serious attention. Not blind faith. Not replacement of medicine. But serious, honest, open attention. The conversation around botanical medicine is not anti-science. It is actually a call for more science. More funding. More curiosity. More willingness to look beyond what is profitable and ask what is actually working. And in the meantime, for everyday infections, for the kind of things that do not require a hospital but do require something, it is worth knowing what the earth has already given us. So here is where we land today. Oregano oil, specifically wild oregano oil standardized for Carvacrol content, has decades of research behind it pointing to real antimicrobial properties. It is not prescribed because of patent law, medical training gaps and standardization challenges. Not because it does not work. Your grandmother's instinct to reach for the garden was not ignorance. It was a kind of knowing that we are only now finding the scientific language to describe. Use it wisely. Use it carefully. Keep learning. And if today's video gave you something real, something you did not have before you clicked on it, then this channel has done its job. If you are not yet part of the Homestead Roots family, subscribe right now. We put out videos like this regularly and every single one is built to give you something genuinely useful to carry into your life. Leave a comment below and tell me what you want us to cover next. What plant, what remedy, what forgotten piece of knowledge do you want us to dig up for you? Your comments shape this channel and I take every single one seriously. Like this video if it added value to your day. Share it with someone who needs it. And we will see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. Take care of your people. And remember, the roots go deep.